Hello and welcome to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast. I'm Carlos Casanova and I'm here with Ken Gonzalez,
Carlos.
Charlie Betts,
Carlos.
and Dan Ortega from Blazon. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So Dan, we've had you on before. A lot of things going on these days, a lot of changes in your world.
Change is a constant. I mean, there's so much going on in the technology space, right? That you've got variables coming in from a technical point of view, from a process point of view, from a people point of view. Organizations change. There was an interesting quote in one of the speeches I listened to yesterday from Darwin saying, "It isn't the strongest or the most intelligent that survive; it's the most adaptable."
Yeah.
And which is a really good quote.
Yeah.
And so what we're finding now, Blazon is a smaller company, but we're very adaptable and we're constantly shifting and changing to try and stay one step ahead of a market that never looks the same one quarter to the next. So change is a constant. It's been a great experience. It's nice being in marketing and doing this, because from my point of view, you always get to play with the cool toys.
Yeah.
You always get to do the interesting things. So I love what I do. I love the space we're in. It's very dynamic. It's very interesting, and there's always something cool coming at you pretty much all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think, and just for the Knowledge 16 audience, let's just talk a little bit about Blazon's core value proposition. We've been working together for some time off and on, and of course, CMDB and asset management, still big concerns. Obviously, we need to understand what the estate is. I mean,
Okay.
we're just...
Well, so one of the consistent issues that we run into, and this is everywhere all the time, is all these companies, the ServiceNow install base, or anybody in the ITSM or ITOM space, for example, there is so much data coming in at such a high volume, so many different sources, and it's continuous, right? And they make business decisions based on the data. So all these companies have a configuration management database, right, CMDB, which is great, but it doesn't filter what comes in. So
Right.
bad data in, bad data out, bad data, therefore you get bad decisions, which can have a huge impact on the way a company operates. So what we do is we focus specifically on data quality management. So we catch the information as it comes in from whatever source. We look for inconsistencies, we do alignment, we will plug the gaps, we'll normalize it, we'll tie it all together. So anything that goes into the CMDB is clean, it's well organized, it's consistent, because you could have the same configuration item referenced 20 different ways
Right.
from 20 different sources. So all that goes away. So you're basically in a position where the business can make business decisions based on good data rather than inaccurate data. You can still make a bad decision, but
Sure.
at least you're doing it off of good information,
Right.
Which is a big gap, I think, in the market now. And it's very consistent. You look at the press every day, somebody's doing a faceplant because they had bad data and therefore they made a bad decision every single day. And it's retail, it's healthcare, it's the government, it goes on and on and on. And we're focused heavily on the IT space because it's an area that's a comfort zone for us. But this could be anything, anywhere, because everybody runs on data. Everybody runs on data. That's the new model. And so this core enablement piece is missing for most companies.
Right.
So this is a great solution pointed at a really good market, and the market is vast. But it's one of those things where we come in, we clean the data up, and it makes a noticeable difference, and it does it really, really quickly. So that's, again, a great spot to be in.
Right.
So you talked about the challenge of having all of the data input. How are you able to help companies that are dealing with potential stale data challenge? Because in an ideal world, change and config, if you're doing them well, you're keeping things up to date, but there's always going to be that part that just kind of falls over. And
Well, so you correlate, there's a temporal, parameter that we can also track again. So if you have data that's old, you correlate it to what's new. So a lot of times they say, well, we'll buy your data quality solution and clean up our data and then we're done. I'm like, okay. So you clean your house once. Yeah, you clean your house once and that's it.
like that forever, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's no kids.
We
There's no
come
kids.
back every
I wish it
week and
worked
we
that
keep
way.
cleaning it up because there's always more stuff coming in.
Sure.
Right? So agent's data is always there. So we can tie into legacy systems and say, is this still valid? Is this still current? Does it match everything else that we have that pertains to this particular configuration item? And if it does, great. If it doesn't, that's a variable that we adjust and then lock in. So it's not just a matter of having it organized and contextualized. Is it current? And what is the parameter that y'all set for currency, right? Is it, if it's older than 3 months? No. Is it older than a year? No. I mean, some things you can tell. If it's 5 years old, probably not.
Yeah.
But for some instances, 3 months is the equivalent of 5 years. So it varies by industry, by company, by vertical, by internal policy, what IT wants to do. So a lot of times we'll come in and say, look, there's a lot of ways we can play this. What makes the most sense for you? Because retail versus, say, state government, very different in terms of what they have to do. And sometimes regulated environments have a different set of parameters they have to map against, right?
Very
So it's very contextual, depending on who you're talking to, where they are, what's driving their problems, what's driving their issues.
Yeah, again, it's got to be about that business value.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And one of the areas that that I've been seeing a lot more, and I've been promoting a lot more, is the security aspect of it,
Yeah.
right, and the leveraging of that. Because we talk about, I think last year the metrics from Symantec and a couple of other research firms were it's almost 8 months before breaches are detected, right? Which is scary. And the more
Yeah.
time you spend in this space, the more
That's
scared
a
you-
long time to do damage.
Right, and that in what's being scanned on the network. So I look at it from what you just said, right? What's the timing of change? In some cases, it should be instantaneous. So if
Yeah.
you're picking that up, I think there's a very strong security value component to this where these pieces should not change
Yeah.
outside of that formal process. So if you can pick that up, it's the resilience, it's the vigilance. You play into that vigilance component of security to pick that up quicker to potentially bring that 8 months down to hopefully a week rather
Yeah,
than
we're not a security
No,
application per se, but we can pick up holes.
Exactly.
Right.
Your patch has not been updated and it should have been, 2 weeks ago, or
Exactly.
there's a flaw in, this particular application that is security related has not been
Right.
updated.
Right.
What are you waiting for?
Right.
You
And
know,
I think that's key. It's not that it's a security product, but it plays into the cybersecurity
It
model.
enables security,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely, you can't manage security if you don't have a good understanding of your perimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even in the context of physical security, the perimeter is an understanding between security and your facility's operations. In the case of IT security, the security department can't know
Right.
all of the
No,
devices.
there's
and
so
then-
many
and
things
it's-
coming in,
And
yeah.
everybody, the multiple departments need that information, and then so security becomes one of the consumers, one of the major use cases, and certainly a lot of value there.
And it's deeper than the perimeter, right? Because we've always talked about security from the perimeter perspective. And the fact is, once we started doing remote and cloud and anything else, we've punched
Mobile.
holes, all the mobiles,
IoT.
we've punched thousands holes through our perimeter. So that's no longer enough.
Yes.
So internally, and how they're playing this is they're elevating their own credentials internally.
Yeah.
So now you're monitoring the perimeter as you need,
Yeah.
but some of those internal things, like why would those credentials, those authentication pieces, have been elevated on a device that had no right to be?
Yeah.
Well, this is the problem, and this all, I think, got triggered, first, they opened up the internal mechanisms of IT when the internet came in,
Yeah.
and suddenly consumers could access back-end systems for ordering, for
Right.
example, and then the mobility thing hit,
Yep.
and suddenly, these devices come in, they're computers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, very powerful computers, and everybody wants to use a shiny object, and the systems are not designed to handle hundreds of thousands of little computers all kind of poking around
Yep.
trying to get stuff out of the mainframe system or whatever the back-end server is. So it's a big shift.
Yeah.
And the problem is the consumer space moves way faster than the IT space.
Yeah.
And so as a result, we're continuously trying to keep up. And what we're doing now, the security issues that we're seeing, this is all a manifestation of that. It's just you have two intersecting domains moving at different speeds that have to lock together, one spinning really quickly, the other's not moving so fast, and so the gears are grinding.
Well, and I don't think, you just mentioned it, we don't have the history of it, so we don't know the patterns, the trends that in other spaces, okay, that's out of cycle.
Yeah.
With the mobility, that pattern and trends is different probably
It's
month to
happening,
month, year to
but
year.
There's so much stuff going on. We get our arms wrapped around mobility, social media pops up. We
Exactly.
get that wrapped out something. There's the cycle, it used to be an 8-year cycle for really big disruptive technologies to come
Right.
out, and that cycle is shortening.
Yeah.
And it's all these really smart kids coming up with really cool ideas, and suddenly everybody takes off, and a lot of this stuff, the first time I saw Twitter, I thought, ooh. And, now I'm a big user, and
Right.
it took me a little while to figure it out. My kid picked it up just like
Oh, they're
that.
instant.
And he was 9 years old, I think
Yeah.
I mentioned to somebody earlier. We signed on at the same time, and when, after the first month, I had, 500 followers, he had 5,000.
Yep.
Because he understood what people were looking for at 9 years of age, and I'm trying to be intelligent and thoughtful, so.
I can't get 5,000 followers.
You gotta post cat videos.
Yeah, you get a big celebrity following you, exactly.
Well, so we've been talking about cybersecurity through this last little bit. What about cyber resilience? Because every organization at this point has some part of it that they actually depend upon. If their digital infrastructure goes down, they're literally out of business. So what can you provide in that area?
So what we do is deliver to the cloud. So there's automatic backup and resilience built into the system that we deliver. So, if you have an on-premise thing, you always have to have a remote thing that you can fall back to, and if things head south really quickly. With the cloud, it balances automatically. So we have a set of circumstances where information is constantly being copied and replicated around just for that eventuality. So if one server or even a server farm goes down, that's okay because we automatically play out. So companies like the Amazon Web Services, Azure, people like that, that's what they do. They make sure that this doesn't happen. So moving these kinds of capabilities into the cloud is a great way to provide that resilience, because things will head south.
Yeah.
And in fact, they do it all the time. So going through AWS, et cetera, is a great way to kind of stay one step ahead of that.
Yeah, I mean, the resilience is really key, and understanding that you have that resilience. As we talk about in the more pure service management side, when you have that, we don't have to do the firefighting that we normally do. Because if it was architected properly, you shouldn't, I mean, you still need to address it, but it's not the huge firestorm that's there.
It's not as bad as it was. The problem is that, very few companies, from my experience, have a fully unified view of their IT deployment and services. And so, you have pockets.
Yep.
And sometimes some pockets are fast, some are slow. And so it's getting that internal alignment that will basically make the whole thing kind of fall together very nicely.
Well, Dan, as always, thanks for coming on. It's, we could probably go on for several more hours on different topics, but thank you again for coming on. Charlie, thank you.
It's always great to be
Tanner,
here. Thank you.
Thanks.